You are listening and watching Stuck in the Middle podcast. I am your host, Reflex. Welcome to another week, man. We are back on the desk. We got a special guest. She's joining us on Zoom on the line. But before we get to our special guest, I want to thank everybody who kicks it with us every week, man, on YouTube. If you're watching right now, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification so you get updates every time we drop something new. Send us an email, sitmpodcast237@gmail.com. If you want to refer guests, if you want to write for us, if you just want to connect with us, the whole team is producing this. And of course, we're online, sitmpodcast.com. If you want to shop merch and just kick it with us that way, man. SITM Podcast on all social media platforms. Enough of that. Listen, she's a digital creator and the author of African Folktales from Childhood. She's a Cameroonian. Long time we had a Cameroonian here on Stuck in the Middle podcast. Got the pleasure of speaking with Alieh Kimbeng. Thank you so much for joining us. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you guys for having me.
COVID treated you right. COVID treated you right. I know you're joining us from Texas, from Dallas, Texas. You know, how is life over there?
I mean, Texas is good. I actually just moved here about 3 months ago, so it's quite different from the Midwest, but it's good. I mean, it's big and they got good food.
Moved 3 months. Where were you based first? And you just been there 3 months. Where were you based? Where'd you move from?
I was in Michigan, and then I moved to Minnesota, and then now I'm in Texas.
Was it because of this Africans there that you moved, or you were like, I'm just going for greener pastures, or?
Honestly, I was just like, I have been in the Midwest too long, and I do have family down here in Texas. So I don't know. I don't have any kids or anything holding me down to one state. So I just woke up and I moved.
I respect it. And, you know, that's a great segue because I actually read and you said, you know, writing is a pathway. And, you know, why first of all, why did you write that? Why did you say that writing is a pathway for you?
I think for me, writing has always been a way for me to like express myself. And it's a way for you to like convey ideas to different people in a way that, I don't know, that just gives them different insight. So think about it as, what are some of the things that you do for self-care, right? I write. Mm-hmm. It's almost a way for me to gather all these thoughts that are in my head and then put them down into somewhere. So it's almost like my self-care stuff that I do.
And so you from the Midwest reside now in Texas. And like I said earlier, you're Cameroonian, right? Correct?
Yes, I am Cameroonian.
So how was life for you like growing up? Did you grow up here in the States or were you born back home, Cameroon?
I was born in Cameroon and then I moved to the States when I was about 17. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, life in Cameroon was pretty standard. It was pretty normal, you know, go to boarding school, come back home, you have your parents. Just the usual. I didn't have like an extraordinary childhood or anything like that. And then I moved here right after high school, and then I started college at University of Michigan, Ann Arbor.
University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, with a bachelor's in microbiology and then master's in health informatics or informatics, whatever that is. What is that?
Think about it as where technology meets healthcare. So sometime in 2011, you know, they passed this whole high-tech law where, you know, our healthcare system had to transition from paper to electronic. Mm-hmm. So you had people on the tech side who only knew tech, and then you had people on the public health side who knew nothing about these EMR systems. So they needed a group of people that could understand the public health side. So what is the impact of this on the public? And they need people who actually understood the technology side. So that's where the health informatics field come from. So think about it as like where public health meets technology. That's
you're like rich.
Way for me to explain it. Well, I mean, I'm blessed.
She said, well, I mean, I'm blessed. You're very, very blessed. Mightily blessed. You didn't even need to write a book. Not to say writing a book was, you know, the reason for you to, you know, make money, but you rich. Is that where you're walking right now? Would you say, like, are you walking in your purpose?
So, well, I do work for a healthcare company. But yeah, I work in the health informatics field right now.
So where did the inspiration come from for writing this book? Like, how did you come about writing this book, African Folktales from My Childhood?
Yeah, so as a kid, right, when I was growing up, storytelling was almost like a huge part of my family. So my dad would always tell us stories before we went to bed. It was almost like a tradition. It was a thing that brought my siblings and I and my dad together. And so these were stories that had been passed down from one generation to the next. So these were stories that had been passed down. I don't know for how long the stories have been passed down, but everyone knew the story of John and Mary, all those stories in the book. And so as I grew older and I came here, my little cousins and nieces and nephews, they didn't know any of the stories.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even ever remember the last time their parents sat and told them a story. And so to me, it was like this huge part of like oral tradition, because again, storytelling was a way to pass down cultures and values from one generation to the next, or between your families, or things like that back in the day. And so this huge part of history was being lost. And so that was really the inspiration, was for me to capture something that was part of my childhood and preserve it for like future generations, so that way it's not being lost. And this, Android generation kids, they know some of the stories.
Right. So how many stories are in a book?
How many stories? I think there are about 13 or 12 stories. I'm not sure.
And how important is it that oral history, African oral history, be preserve that culture?
I think to me it's quite important, right? Because if you don't really understand your culture or where you're from, you almost don't have a strong foundation. So you don't understand why people do the things that they do, or why maybe this tradition or this value was important. So to me, it's like that oral tradition being preserved, or even just talking about it or bringing it to light, is like really important. Because if you don't have a strong foundation, it's like, people can just blow you from left to right.
Right.
You just go in any direction that the wind blows.
Yeah, the importance of knowing oneself and where one comes from. And I think we're blessed in that regard, right? Being Africans.
Oh yeah, definitely. We're surrounded by so much culture all the time.
So be honest with me, right? Do you think in passing down these stories from generation to generation, small Maggie, small pepper were added to it to magnify their significance?
Of course. It's with everything, right? You do add small Maggie or pepper, even when your friends tell you something and you're trying to tell it to the next person, right? Something gets lost in that transition. So some of the stories, I try to keep them as authentic as I could. But again, it wasn't from like the first person who ever told the story. So I'm pretty sure that as these stories have been passed down, some of those little aspects have been lost. But I think overall, the core of maybe the moral that story was trying to teach still remains.
And I was particularly interested in reading this book because, I can remember a lot of these stories, you can
remember the stories?
No, I couldn't.
Okay.
I now can, but I couldn't, I was like, dang, that's just, growing up a lot. We used to hear a lot of stories from not only from parents and family members, from friends, and there were songs associated with them, and just, it just make life all the more enjoyable. And then, being here in the West, you're like, dang, I can't even remember them joints. You remember like bits and pieces of it, but it's not vivid. And so for you, when did you come to that point where it's like, I can't remember these stories and I need to put these down in pen and paper?
I think for me, it was when I was talking to my sister, because she's quite older than I am. Well, not that much older, but I could only remember the songs of the stories. I couldn't remember them. And I was like, oh, wow, this was something that was really important in my family, right? Like my dad telling us stories was something that we always looked forward to, and it always brought us together. And so that was a turning point for me when I was talking to my sister, and she could remember some of them, or I could just remember the songs. And so what I did was during COVID, because working from home, I did have a little bit of time, and I would just go to these older folks' houses and just sit there, and they would tell me the stories and I'll record them. Or if I couldn't go to their house because maybe they lived in a different state, they will send me like an audio recording, and then I'm going to translate that and write it and then put that into a book. So that turning point was definitely talking to my sister, and I was just like, oh my gosh, that was like a really cool childhood memory, and I have no idea. I didn't write up the stories.
So a lot of research definitely went into it. And in regards to, the broader research, was there already something like this out there in the market where you're like, we're liking this, especially in Cameroon culture, and that's where you consider yourself like, I'm gonna take the mantle, I'm gonna write this, I'm gonna put it out there?
I think they have the one from Nelson Mandela's recommended stories. I don't remember the title of that book, but it's still around the same genre. But I don't think there was anything like this from Cameroon, especially with the stories. I don't think these had ever been written down or captured before. But yeah, there's definitely other ones, right? Like the Aesop fables and things like that, but that's more European culture,
Yeah, yeah.
but not necessarily from Cameroon.
I know the difficulty of writing, publishing a book as a published author myself. What kind of challenges you two face in publishing this book?
Oh, first of all, I had never published a book before. So
Mm-hmm.
that by itself was a challenge. It was a whole learning experience for me and trying to figure out, okay, um, how do you find a publisher? How do you find someone to edit the books? Who's going to do the design? So everything was a challenge. Luckily, my younger brother is like super, super talented and he was able to do all the illustrations for the book. But definitely finding the publisher, especially if you're going the self-publish route, it's expensive because I'm paying to publish the book. It's not like someone is paying me. So again, those are some of the things that you definitely have to put into consideration. And then working with other people have different styles because someone is saying, hey, I'm going to deliver this at this time, and they don't come true. So you have to constantly adjust your timeline and learn how to be, learn how to adapt and be flexible. So this entire process, to me, it was a challenge, but it was also like a good learning experience because I love challenges. So
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned, working with your younger brother who illustrated the pictures in the book. How was that relationship like?
Oh, me and my younger brother, we do have an amazing relationship. It was actually good and bad. Good in terms of we will stay up till sometimes to like 2-3 o'clock in the morning.
Sheesh.
And he's gonna draw a picture and I'll be like, no, I need you to look at that picture.
Where is the grace?
Someone looks at that picture and let it tell the story. Because my younger brother, his genre, he draws anime and stuff. So this was out of, his comfort zone. He's never had to draw things like this. But I was like, nope, the picture has to tell the story. I want someone to look at that picture and be like, that's, the hunter sitting on top of the bones and the bones are singing, and people know exactly what that story was. So it was that constant feedback. And sometimes we'll stay on the phone, we're just going to catch up because he's in DC. He goes to college there and we'll order food and, we're just talking and trying to get things done. And then the downside was, he has college. And so sometimes he would say, hey, I'm going to get you this by Sunday. And then Sunday comes. Oh, I got busy with schoolwork. So I'm not going to be able to get that to you on time. So, those were like some of the challenges. But, overall, it was a good experience for both of us.
You did research and actually going out, to interview folks, get the stories, I'm guessing for accuracy, and then, doing research in terms of, making sure that you publish it right and be professional. But what was the biggest thing that you learned in the process of writing this book?
One of the biggest things that I learned was that I need to learn more about marketing from publishing the book. I think that when you write something, right, like you can have a piece of art, and even though it's a piece of art and it's laying under your bed, no one is going to see it. So you need to learn how to put it out there, not just put it out there, but put it in front of people that it's going to resonate with, and that they're actually going to maybe like purchase it and, learn how to like scale this. How do I scale this outside of my community? And so that was, one of like the huge things for me. It's like, I don't know much about marketing and I need to learn how to market myself, not just myself. I need to learn how to market a product. I'm still learning. I'm not there yet.
That's why you're on here.
Right.
Hey, that's why you're on here on Stuck in Middle podcast. Do you think that the experience and the art of telling stories and listening to stories from our parents, the art of telling folktales, do you think it's lost in our society today? I mean, you mentioned earlier in this Android generation in the West, but do you think it's the same back home in the continent?
Oh yeah. I mean, especially in the West, is definitely lost because we're super, super busy, right? You have parents who are just, going to work, coming home, they gotta get food for the kids and do all this stuff. And then most of the time the kids are on their iPads because they have all this technology and all this other stuff to distract them. But when you're growing up back home, I didn't have an iPad or all this stuff. I had to sit at home and play with the neighbors' kids, or look forward to my dad telling us stories. So definitely in this generation, that's something that has been lost. And even back home, it's still been lost because my younger siblings, I have a 13 and an 11-year-old sisters, they don't know the stories. Because my dad, over the years, is like, we're getting more and more of that westernized influence in our
Mm.
culture. And some of these little things that used to bring our families together have been lost. My siblings, the younger ones, have never heard these stories because, again, they're Android. They do have phones. They do have iPads. They have things that are distracting them, things that I didn't grow up with. So yeah, definitely. This, storytelling is gradually being lost in our culture or our community.
From your research, where do you think these stories evolved from?
I think it was a way, like I said, to teach people good from bad or wrong from right, or like little kids. Because if you look at these stories, most of them are, if you're good things will happen to you. If you're bad, you're gonna die. Because some of them are very wild and very graphic. And I read them, I'm just like, they were telling us the stories when I was like 6, 7, that they're gonna kill somebody and all this mermaid stuff. I think it was another way for you to teach children. And so that's what my dad actually used to do, that to us as kids, where when we do something wrong, sometimes instead of yelling or whooping us or doing whatever it is that parents do, he would tell us a story that relates to whatever it is that you did, to teach you what you just did. So I think he's.
And I was just gonna ask, how were they told? Generally, where was it like a camp, like a fire in the backyard, and all the kids got it, and then grandma or the parents tell her, or it was just like, hey, this thing happened, and here's the story. How was it like for you growing up? What was the experience in hearing this folktales?
It was a little bit of both. Sometimes we're in the village and they'll light up a fire, and the kids will just gather around, which is where the inspiration of the cover picture came from. But you could clearly tell who was telling the story. So if you look at the cover of the book, it's like the older person, because usually there are older people in the communities that are telling the stories. But if it was back home, maybe in the city, not necessarily in the village, it's just going to be in the living room where we just sit around and my dad would like tell us the story. So it just a little bit of both, depending on where we were.
Yeah, I'm gonna put you on the spot real quick.
Oh, you're gonna put me on the spot.
What is one story from the book that is your favorite?
The story from the book that's my favorite is the Devil's Land. Yeah, that's my favorite story.
You got to tell it.
I have to tell it.
Yep. It's okay if you want to read. If you just summarize, that's okay.
Okay. So overall, right? So, and facts, the characters in the book, I actually named them after my dad and my younger brother. So my dad's name is Richard and my younger brother's name is Ricky. And I'm going to tell you why the story was my favorite, because my dad used to sing the song, and it was like the funniest thing, like listening to him sing the song. So the Devil's Land story, it's like you have these two successful farmers who are in the village, and they have this rare garden egg, which only them can grow, and they're quite wealthy. And so one of the farmers, I think.
Sure, I'm in the mood already. Let me get comfy.
Like, I'm in the mood.
Let me get comfy for this one.
And so one of the farmers, Ricky, he didn't have a good harvest, and he started struggling. Lost most of his crops, and so he could barely take care of his family. And so he went to Richard's farm and he stole some garden eggs to feed his family. And so when Richard found out, Richard was like, hey, you need to pay me back. And not just pay me back, but I want this same species of garden eggs. And so Richard goes to the village trying to find this same species to pay Richard back. And he couldn't find it. And so he meets this person in the market who says, hey, they have this species of garden egg, but it's in the Devil's Land. And no human has ever come back from the Devil's Land alive. And Richard has given Ricky a deadline. You need to give me my garden eggs by this date, if not, I'm going to report you to the king or whatever. So Ricky decides to set off, for the Devil's Land. And on his way, he meets first of all, an older lady who's, trying to clear her farm. And so she was like, hey, can you help me out? I'm just quite this old lady. And so he stops to help her. And so she's like, I don't have any money to give you, but you can take my machete. So she gives him his machete. The second stop, he finds some cattlemen whose cows had escaped. And so he stops again to help them. And so they give him corn. And so once he heads over to the Devil's Land, he finds the garden eggs, and as he's picking them, like these devils come out of the bushes and they pick him up and they lock him out in this big cage, and they have these big giant chickens as guards. And so what he does, again, they didn't take the corn or the matcha that these people on the way had given him. So they locked him in that cage. And as you know, chickens love corn. So he threw the corn like really far away from the cage. And so as the chickens are eating and they're distracted, he used the machete to free himself and then cut some of the garden eggs and then go home. And so he goes home, he pays Richard back, he plants those garden eggs, and he becomes like super wealthy, even wealthier than the king. And so Richard sees this and he's jealous. And so he's like, okay, I'm going to go to the Devil's Land because I want to be richer, than Ricky. And he sets up for the Devil's Land. He gathers his spears, machetes, whatever it is that he thinks he's going to need to fight these devils. And so on the way there, he meets those same people, but he refuses to help them. And so once he gets to the Devil's Land, he starts singing, this place smells like the Devil's Land. And so as he's singing and cutting, these garden eggs, the devils, as they see him, they just like pound on him and they eat him because they're like, one human has escaped before and we're not going to let another human escape, and that's the end of the story.
That's a sad ending, man.
It is. That's why I think these stories were very wild. They were very wild. But I just remember my dad singing it with like his voice. This voice smells. This voice smells.
I was gonna ask what the scariest of the stories are in the book, but yeah, I don't think it's a bright Saturday out here in DC. I think
I mean, most of the scary ones are actually like the John and Mary ones, now that I think about it, because they're either someone is getting swallowed by the Bami water or they're getting killed. And then the ones about the tortoise are quite funny because he's like wise and he always gets away with like all the stuff that he does. So that was funny.
Nah, that's dope, man. I really, really appreciate you putting this, collection together. And I encourage everybody to go pick up a copy. Definitely go pick up a copy. Support Alieh Kimbeng, African Folktales from My Childhood. This is dope stuff.
Thank you.
You actually well traveled and have experienced a lot of cultures. Do you find that a lot of these folktales translate to different cultures that countries that you've been to?
I love a lot of the stories, like the folktales. Definitely European cultures because they have something called Aesop fables. So definitely in that part of the world, I would say yes. I haven't looked into folktales in other cultures apart from like Africa and Europe, so I can really speak into maybe the other countries that I've been through.
How many countries have you traveled to? Have you been to?
Ooh, let's see. Now I have to count. It's probably between 15 to 20, somewhere in that ballpark. What's one country outside of Cameroon that you would love to go back and spend more time? Oh, that's easy. Australia, Melbourne. That's
like, Australia.
I love.
Are you sick? All them wildlife they got over there.
I love. That's what people say, but I never saw the kangaroo. I mean, I saw the kangaroos in like the zoo and stuff. But it's like you don't see all that stuff on the streets. I don't see
videos of people going to take a dump, lift up the toilet seat, and there's a big old snake in that joint chilling.
That's social media. That's social. I was in Australia for 6 months, and I promise you, I had never experienced any of that stuff. It is a beautiful country. I mean, I love Melbourne. Melbourne's the city. I love Melbourne. The people are super nice. Yeah. After college, I was applying to jobs there because I wanted to go live there. I love Australia.
What's next on your list to travel?
Next on my list to travel, definitely. Well, right now it's Greece.
When are you going to Greece? I'm gonna be out there very soon.
Probably in April.
Oh, okay. We going
sometime in April.
We're gonna bypass each other.
Yeah, probably in April.
So, you're a digital creator. Actually.
When are you going? I'm trying to go in April.
It's gonna be this time next year. This same time next year.
Oh no, we're definitely not gonna see each other.
Yeah, it's gonna be pew pew. You actually you actually a digital creator for Toride, which is based in Dallas, Texas as well. How did that connection come to be?
Oh yeah, so Toride had actually done a photo shoot for me way long ago. I think probably 2 years ago, and so when we worked together, it was just like you know how you vibe with somebody once you work with them? It's like just good energy, good flow. And so he was like, you should move to Dallas because I want to work with you. And I'm just like, I'm not gonna move to Dallas. And so when he finally found out that I had moved to Dallas, he was like, hey, I want you to, start doing interviews for me. And I do, love his work. And I love him as a person. So I was like, sure, why not? I have free time. I'm gonna come do some interviews for you. So it was just photo shoot, and
The vibe was right, and the next is history. I love it. Exactly. I love it. I got 2 more questions for you as we round down. How would you measure success? What is success to you? Both in terms of just personal life and the book. How has it been received?
Yeah, I think success to me, I feel like that has always been something that I think about. But I think success to me has always been more about the people that I've influenced. If someone walks up to me and they say, hey, this blog post that you wrote helped me in this way, that's success to me. Or if someone says, hey, this book, I've been looking for just the messages that people send out to me and say, hey, I've been looking for a book like this from the Cameroonian culture, right? That's already just the fact that I published a book, and even if one person got it, that is successful to me, because it takes a lot of work to put something out there. It takes a lot of courage. So success to me is really measured by how many people I'm able to inspire and influence.
Yeah, no, that's dope. I definitely respect that. Where can people purchase the book? How can people reach you if they want to learn more?
Oh, you can purchase the book on Amazon, Target, Walmart, Baobab Press. If you do want to reach me, you can reach me on Instagram. I'm pretty decent at responding. I'm not going to say good. I'm going to say decent. At Alieh Kimbeng on Instagram. And I do have an email attached to my page as well.
And she's a blogger. She got a website. Yeah, I can hit her up on there. Definitely appreciate this conversation. This is dope stuff. I hope people go out and purchase the book, pick it up. African Folktales from My Childhood by Alieh Kimbeng. Thank you so much for kicking it with us today, yo.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you guys so much for having me and for being super accommodating. I really appreciate it.
It's love. It's love. Listen, if you enjoy what you watched, what you heard, if you're riding around, you're doing dishes, whatever the case is, do a screenshot, send it to your group text, send it to your ex, send it to your aunties and them on WhatsApp status and all that good stuff. Let them know we out here and we popping. Alieh Kimbeng in the building. She's a digital creator and author, like I said, of African Folktales from My Childhood. She's Cameroonian. She's based in Dallas, Texas. Well-traveled, doing her thing. I am your host, Reflex. Shout out to the entire team, Ma Achiri, Charles, Tutu, Choo, and Ines. Appreciate y'all for checking us out this week, and we're going to see you on the next one. Peace.